Welcome back to Nights with Chris Boyle. Joining us now is comedian and podcaster Vaughn Frye. Vaughn, thank you so much for joining the program tonight.
Hey, thanks for having me. Thanks for pronouncing my name right. I have been called to stage as Vaughan quite a bit lately, so I appreciate that very much.
I was going to go with Vaughan Free. I'm glad I didn't go there. It sounds nice. At least it has a ring to it.
Yeah, I tell him, it's pronounced Vaughan, like Vince Vaughan from Wedding Crashers. Totally adds up.
So your podcast, it's called Even My Mom Has a Podcast, and your co-host, it's actually none other than your own mother. I think that's the coolest idea ever. I want to bring my mom on, but she's too camera shy. Tell me, how did that happen? How'd that get started for you?
My mom's camera shy too. If you check out the trailer for Even My Mom Has a Podcast, she thinks it's not rolling. Hey, we're just testing equipment. Just sit down and test this. I just want to try this out. Okay, well, this didn't get on the internet, and I figure she recently retired, a children's librarian. She needs something to do. Prevagen's expensive. So we're just going to try to keep the cogs spinning with something talking about the news, see what kind of adventures I can get her into. Currently, she's out in a travel trailer, seeing Colorado. So I might have her call in for an upcoming episode next week or so and see what her adventures are like, what kind of trouble she got into. I know she already forgot some pills at the house, and I had to go meet them halfway to go, I guess, drug deal with your folks. So that was an eventful day. I'm sure we'll have more adventures. Loves to load up on bear spray. Maybe she'll get to use it someday.
Interstate drug trafficking, that's something, man. That's something.
Yeah.
So I have to ask, one of the things I love, for anyone who does any content creation with older folks, with the generation before us, one of the things that I love is when they see how strange our culture has gotten, right? I was actually doing a radio show with a guy just last night, and he, from the older generation, we were talking about, weird, satanic stuff in music. And this guy's talking about, Ozzy Osbourne, he had a lot of, dark stuff. But if you listen to his music, he was actually talking about a relatively good message. And I'm sitting here thinking, Doja Cat literally is singing about selling her soul to Satan while gyrating on the devil in a music video. I don't think we're looking at the same stuff. What is it like when you show your mom some of the stuff that's going on in the world and actually get her takes when you have someone who's looking at a very, very strange culture through a kind of unfiltered lens?
I am cautious not to expose her to too much too quick. I make sure she is not on any social media at all. She cannot be reached. She cannot find out about my antics. She barely knows she has a podcast, and I like to keep it that way. I have tried to expose her to recently celebrities kind of getting added to Mortal Kombat, new Mortal Kombat game that just came out. She reacted to that, said that the Jean-Claude Van Damme Johnny Cage didn't sound like him, and then said that he was the star of Transporter, and I had to inform her that's Jason Statham. So I try to keep her in the dark as much as possible and just get those honest mom reactions.
So you've been doing a bunch of video games, right? You just mentioned video games. You've been doing a bunch of video game reviews lately. I know we're getting into the Christmas season, so break down for me what your top 3 video games are and why you think people should go out and get those ones. Because I'll be honest with you, I haven't played a game that I've liked since, Grand Theft Auto 5. I don't play them enough.
Well, everybody's still playing Grand Theft Auto 5. That's part of the problem. It's going on anniversary 25, I guess. We are at some point when they want to continue printing money over there at Rockstar, they're going to come out with GTA 6 that'll look like real-life robberies of convenience stores. Currently, I am really locked into the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's one of these asymmetric horror player versus player type games. Usually you want to play as the big killer and everybody else wants to also, but this time you get 3 killers to chase 4 victims around the household, and everybody has a good time. I've seen so many hilarious weird glitches. They're really working and putting a lot of effort into this game. It's very true to that first movie. They're adding new characters, new maps, as the kids call them, these areas where the carnage takes place. And I think that's probably my favorite new game going for the time being.
That's cool, and it's perfect heading right into the Halloween season. And what's the, you said that's an Xbox game?
It is on Xbox Game Pass right now. It is on other platforms, PlayStation. You can play it on the older Xbox as well and PC.
So I want to ask, I know within the gaming community there's been a lot of controversy. I mean, I know going all the way back to Gamergate, right? That was something that happened God, I want to say like a decade ago, but it seems like recently there's been a lot of controversy in adaptations of older games and, quite frankly, doing away with, sexualized characters, as people want to say, or people who, characters who are showing a bunch of cleavage. You have like in Mortal Kombat, the lady with the swimsuit or whatever throwing high kicks. Do you think that's something that's going to actually affect gameplay? Do you think that's something that people care about? Do you think that's just for aesthetics, or do you think there's a real political move that's going to interfere with how people interact with these games?
There seems to be some kind of in-industry pushback to this. When Cammy of Street Fighter was added to Fortnite, they ditched her leotard and gave her pants. And when they brought her into Street Fighter 6, you had the ability to unlock the classic costume, and boy, was it the classic costume in all of its glory. And that just absolutely surprised me. I was surprised we could ever go back to that, because it doesn't look like we're getting the old Lara Croft back anytime soon.
No, and it seems like, unfortunately, so many video games are based on intellectual properties that are already out there existing, and the more intellectual properties are put out, the more new intellectual properties, I should say, the more they're adhering to kind of different standards, kind of woke standards, standards that are rewriting, the high adventure stories that we're used to coming out of times like the 70s, 80s that are based really on the imaginations of dudes who were living like the 1940s, who saw, the ends of the great periods of chivalry. So it's kind of interesting that there still is a push to get those things back. So your number one game, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, what would you say is number two? What if I already have Texas Chainsaw Massacre and I want to get something for a friend, for the guy that has everything, what should I keep a lookout for that's going to be releasing soon coming up?
I haven't played it yet, but everybody seems to be enjoying the new Mortal Kombat, though I do have issues with this kind of convoluted, let's go back in time and reboot things. I never really am a fan of rebooting stuff. I played recent Resident Evil 4 reboot, which felt like a husk of the former game, which was a tongue-in-cheek action type film. Now they're trying to ground it, make it more serious. And like you said, the scantily clad ladies are not really there. I mean, even, hey, we have to put a jacket on the president's daughter over here. We got to take out the line talking about her being equipped with ballistics. Like, oh, it was so offensive in a game where we're blowing heads off left and right at villagers in Spain.
I think the real life president, people would prefer if his child kept more clothes on. You've had some spicy takes recently on some Netflix series. I know Netflix seems to be where everything big is premiering, and they're trying really hard to put content out. I want to get your thoughts on what Netflix is doing today. I know they're a little controversial, but we're going to have to take a super short, quick break first, so folks at home, sit tight. We'll be back in 2. Welcome back to Nights with Chris Boyle. Joining me once again is Vaughn Fry. So Vaughn, I've been checking out your reviews. You've been talking about some of the new stuff that Netflix has been putting out, and not all of your opinions are positive. Some of them are, but not all of them. What do you think are the big mistakes that Netflix is making right now in releasing their own content, which they're under more and more pressure to do?
Oh, Netflix is a sinking ship, and I have been predicting this for at least a couple of years. They're not going to make it through the decade without some kind of acquisition. Ideally, I would think somebody like maybe Walmart or Apple wanting to get into the streaming biz would just buy a shake and bake streaming service and have it ready to go. I'm surprised that Apple went with Apple TV Plus, and they have so few offerings over there. Why not just go ahead and buy Netflix, get it off the ground right there? Netflix has made a lot of efforts to try to adapt anime series into either bad movies or a bad series itself, live action. And it always seems to disappoint, except One Piece seems to have struck a chord with the fans. Frankly, I don't know a whole lot about One Piece. It's a stretchy pirate with a straw hat, and there's 1,000+ episodes that I don't really have time for. I made it to almost a minute and a half of the live action series on Netflix before I switched off. Just completely miffed as to how there were guards in a fantasy world of pirates wearing baseball caps. It was just really quite off-putting for me.
Do you think this is something that Netflix is going to continue? And so I was a big fan of the show Cowboy Bebop. I think a lot of people were. That's not like super niche or anything like that.
The anime was amazing. I mean, right? You were a fan of the anime, not the live action one, right?
Well, that's the thing. So I mean, that was an adaptation that I think everyone was cringing to see, and it's difficult to do anime adaptations very well. I mean, off the top of my head, I can't really think of too many, especially when they're well-known products, right? Especially something with a ton of episodes out. I would hate to say. I think they even did a Dragon Ball Z one years back that was critically panned. But Netflix seems to be banging their head against this wall over and over. I think they might even be doing a Fooly Cooly one. Do you think that they're really forced into a corner where this is the only content that they have left, and they're going to keep pumping this kind of stuff out because they don't really have the money to fund new projects? And now, everything's on strike. You can't even get new commercial material written here in the United States. So do you think that we're heading toward a real bottleneck of material that's going to force, companies that have to put out content consistently, they can't stop putting stuff out? So instead of a bottleneck where we're getting less stuff made, we're getting more stuff made that's of lesser and lesser quality.
Yeah, you really nailed it right there. We will never see the type of captive audience as we did with Lockdown for these streaming series, these shows, the providers. So they will never actually have those numbers ever again. They will never have good stock news. Netflix owns almost no IPs. So they have to try to reach for something overseas. The anime stuff seems to be available. I think it was in 2012-ish. It was, or maybe 2007 or so. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles got acquired by CBS, Viacom, Paramount, Nickelodeon for $60 million, an absolute steal. You can print money on TMNT for ages. You can make that back within one movie. Netflix never really got anything like that. And I think that as soon as Stranger Things wraps, there is going to be a massive cancellation because it's really the only series people have really gotten behind.
Well, and it's crazy because I just saw a recent headline that they're doing AI age regression on these actors to try to continue the series. And I think there's something to be said for these cartoon series because you can keep bringing them. I mean, look at The Simpsons. The Simpsons has been going for, I think, 35 years now or something like that. And it's still, barely chugging on, but it still is. Because with a lot of these intellectual properties, you could reboot it, you could remake it, you could do it in a different style, you could do things with different characters. You could, at the end of the day, make all of them black, queer, trans women or whatever, and you're still going to be able to put something out whether or not it's good. But they're doing the opposite. They're taking cartoons and making them into live action, and they're doing fan favorites that really don't stand a chance at being welcomed, at least universally. So it seems like a recipe for disaster. Do you think that there's any way for them to turn this around?
There is a chance that with enough advancements in AI, maybe Netflix can be saved. If, for example, you want another season of Seinfeld and you had AI so powerful enough with the imagery and just on demand, could make you a shake and bake episode of Seinfeld to your very whims. That is a stretch. We're probably a couple decades away from that, but hey, technology moves so fast, sometimes it amazes me. I just look back at things in the 90s and think, oh yeah, we didn't have Wi-Fi and I had to wait to get on the internet. So would I really want to go back to the 90s? Now I have to question it.
No kidding. Vaughn, tell folks at home where they can find more about your work, where they can find your podcast, your comedy, your reviews, the whole shebang bang.
If you can find out how to spell my name, you can hit me up on Instagram and Twitter/X at Vaughn Frye. Wow, hey, my name's written right there. Even my mom has a podcast available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You leave a 5-star review, I will make my mom read it. It will be adorable. Thanks.
Awesome, Vaughn. Thank you so much for coming on the program. We really appreciate you.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
And that's all we have for you this evening. Until next time, you could follow me on Twitter and Instagram at HeyChrisBoyle. If you like the show, please send feedback to chris.boyle@onn.com. Seriously, do it. We're sending it to the people upstairs. They want to see it. I'd like to thank my production team, my director, Jared, my editor, Raphael, PAs, Brittany, and Josh, and all of you at home. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your night.